Good morning, everybody. I don't like to do slides, I like to tell stories. So hope you're not expecting 100 slides. My name is Maarten Ectors. I work as Chief Innovation Officer for Legal in General. And I'd like to start with a simple question. Who here knows what an API is? Hands up if you know what an API is. Okay, you might think that's a dumb question, but I started asking that question in financial services because a lot of meetings I go to, there's 3 out of 100 getting their arms up. And that puzzled me a lot because APIs, if they would stop working in Amazon, 90% of Amazon's profit would disappear because it all comes from their cloud business. So there's different speeds happening in the economy today, and you have business leaders that are perfect actuaries, underwriters, and other experts, but need to be helped in innovation, in technology, and so on. So that's why I joined a financial services, not being myself at all from that background. But before that, I'd like to go back a little bit. I'd like to talk to you about how I came in contact with blockchain. Yes, I knew about Bitcoin. I bought some Litecoins in 2015 and so on, but I really didn't get why people should be so excited about a digital currency that back then was used to buy the things that you don't want to mention to your mother on the internet. So I saw this article in The Economist about this new thing, smart contracts, about this new event that was going to come into the UK called DEFCON 1. So I went on the internet and said, sounds interesting, this smart contract thing. Can I speak there as well? Because they had an opening for speakers, and that's normally the way that you can get into these events for free. And what happened was it was the only event I've been to that as a speaker I had to pay £300 or £400 to still get in. So I thought I'd get on stage there and I'm speaking in front of an empty room because who's going to pay that type of money? And that was a moment nobody ever had heard about a smart contract. To my big surprise, the room was packed. It was 500 people. There were people standing everywhere because there was not enough seats. And there were this whole crazy bunch of people going on stage, demoing things like crazy. I especially remember this very skinny guy that was always going on stage. And then afterwards I find out that, yeah, he was the inventor of Ethereum, so that's why he was important. And I go there on stage and I show them, because back then I was doing Internet of Things, I showed them how smart contracts could be put on fridges, and then you could convert a fridge from something that cost money to something that can generate money. So back then is when I learned a lot about what was happening at the edges. And that's what stuck to me. A lot of innovations are done at the edges and then years later come into general society. So I met some startup there that was interesting, and I had to organize Mobile World Congress in 2016 and show some exciting things about what you could do with IoT, and they had the smart contracts and IoT, so it's come along, we'll give you a booth. We teamed them up with Samsung, so they got some hardware, and they were going to show how to make Airbnb irrelevant. Think about it, this is February 2016, and the whole idea with smart contracts was that hey, you didn't have to have Airbnb. You could have an organization and with your phone and a smart lock open the door and make the payments and so on, and you would not be able to open the door anymore after the 3 days that you paid for the house. So it was really a cool type of idea. They then came there, showed this to everybody. Everybody was excited. There was this event 4 years from now. They won the IoT award there. So it was all very great publicity. And back then, my line manager was the Second Space Tourist, who also had a VC company, and he wanted to immediately invest in them, was turned down by them. Hey, we don't need your money. And that's when I was really, really, really surprised. You don't need money from a VC? You're a 3-people startup. How can that be? 2 months later, my doubts were resolved. That startup was called Slockit, and they went on to launch the DAO, which raised 150 million in the first successful ICO that then became unsuccessful 2 weeks later when 60 million disappeared into the DAO too. And then something that is not possible in our world, but in the digital world is possible, they had to rewind all transactions to just before, throw away all transactions, say, let's start the economy all over again so that the 60 million doesn't get lost. That was 2016, but that single event changed history going forward, because all of a sudden this nascent technology now had security all over. It was going to fail if they didn't solve security. They had to solve it. They had to scale security and trust globally. And that's why now blockchain has come a long way since back then. And now is the time that companies need to look at it. So that was back then. Fast forward 2017, about at this time, I decided, yeah, it's all great to help Amazon launch green grass on the edge with their IoT, to go and explain Facebook how to put app stores on their switches, or to work with Salesforce on like elevators that like have deep learning and see if you have a Kalashnikov and then trap you and get police services involved and so on. All the type of demos we used to do. But that was it. It was demos. It wasn't really changing anything. You did a great demo, everybody gave you a pat on the back, and now up to the next event. I wanted to do more. I wanted to really change something in industries that had an impact. So I decided to take a big step in my career and go and work for something that I didn't have any idea about. A home insurer. Didn't know what an underwriter did. I didn't know anything about insurance, but yeah, what could possibly go wrong? So I arrived there, and yeah, I assumed everybody knew what an API was, and then found out they all thought I was speaking a different language. And yes, I speak 5 languages, but I was trying to do it in English. So it was like, what's happening here? Why can't you understand? And it took me quite some time. But I developed a new way of how you, in a traditional company, can innovate over those 2 years. So the first thing I do is I ask them for their Harry Potter problem. And if I'm in an internal event or an event with customers, I put on red trousers normally. And they never ever seen somebody with red trousers asking, what's your Harry Potter problem? So they're all looking at you like, crazy guy. But I do this on purpose. Because a Harry Potter problem is the type of problem that they can't throw money at and get it resolved. They've tried many times, but it failed every time. And they've often spent millions trying to solve a problem, but they can't. So a Harry Potter problem is, you can't solve it with money. The only thing you can wish for is a crazy innovator to come along with a magic wand and make it disappear. So by wearing red trousers, they don't have to know how to spell my name. Somebody will remember how to do that because it's the crazy guy with the red trousers. But all of a sudden, we got all these really interesting business ideas that like had a big impact if we could solve them. And nobody was competing with us on solving them because they all failed several times. So when they said like, oh, happy for you to focus on that. It will not be important to me because like I don't want to lose my day job. So the first one we got was about claims. Hey, a home insurer, hands up who likes to file a claim for a home insurance or any claim. Yes, that was exactly the reaction because it was not made very easy. It was waiting on a conference or on a phone, waiting for somebody to become available, They typed in the answers to 200 questions, and if you were lucky, you had a check in the mail some days later that took you 3 days to clear in your bank account. Guess what? The net promoter score was negative. So we went in and said, like, Harry Potter problem, how to make it as easy as possible to claim. And then they said, yeah, Maarten, you have to understand a couple of things here. If we do that, we go bankrupt. Why is that? Well, there's dishonest customers and fraudsters that would then like claim for their iPhone falling 20 times in the toilet. People actually claim for their iPhone falling in the toilet from the same iPhone they say didn't work before. So we then came up with like the Harry Potter problem. How can you make it as easy as possible to claim for honest customers and hard as possible for dishonest customers? We launched something in some weeks. It had an amazing first feedback. We then created a complete system called Smart Claim, which we launched some months later. And our NPS score went from negative to 90. The amount of people that we invite to talk to a fraud department that then voluntarily, without complaining, decide to withdraw their claim went through the roof. And the solution won the Best Claim Technology of the Year award last year, about a year ago. And that was 1 year into financial services. And then this opened up a new chapter in my career to go and do innovation at the whole group. Now, legal in general, although it says insurance at the outside, they're the biggest investment manager here in the UK, 1 trillion under investment, the biggest insurer, biggest retirement and pension provider, biggest life insurer, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of different areas. So I went around the business and said, do you have a Harry Potter problem? Do you have a Harry Potter problem? And there was a specifically interesting one. In Bermuda, we have a reinsurance business, very small business, and basically that was its problem. It couldn't grow because to grow a reinsurance business, you had to build a back office team, and getting people to Bermuda meant that you had to take them from either New York or London and make them live in Bermuda. So that meant completely outrageous salaries you had to pay for very average jobs. So a business that couldn't scale needed to be made scalable. And that's where we said, perhaps we can make the back end all automated with smart contracts. But how do we do that? Which provider can we go and get to do that for us? And how would they do that? Like, yeah, we know a little bit about blockchain, but we weren't the experts either. So what do you do in a big company? Who here has participated in an RFI or an RFP? Yeah, about at least half of you. Who likes it? Okay, that's one! Oh, that was a mistake. So basically, that's the problem. Nobody likes these things. And if the team writing them isn't the expert, how are we going to ask for an innovative solution that we have no clue of? So we came up with like a 5-minute RFI. 5 minutes for us to decide, I don't want you. Oh, I like that's interesting. I'd like to see more of you. So in 5 minutes, you can decide you don't want to progress the relationship and not like look at hundreds and hundreds of pages and do things. So how did we do this? We do this by asking 4 slides to be filled in. After we tell you our Harry Potter problem. So this is the Harry Potter problem. How do we automate reinsurance on a place where we can't throw people at it? You fill in a slide like, this is my proposed solution. Second slide, this is what it's going to be technology-wise, like this is how it's going to work. Financially, if we want to work together in beta pilot and running it for a year, we guess this is what's going to cost, and I'll explain that in a second. And then the last one, which was the real innovation, can you provide us a demo video on how easy your solution solves our problem? So in 1 to 3 minutes, we need to be able to see that your solution solves our problem. And guess what? If you go out and, like was mentioned before, my horse is too slow, and you get all these demo videos, you can easily see that, like, yeah, a horse with fireworks bolted on it makes the horse run faster, but it's so scared that you can't control it. So that's not really how you make your horse go faster. But if you then see a Tesla, you might scratch your head about, like, how do you do this? Like, how much grass does it eat? How much water does it drink? But you're now intrigued that it can outrun your fastest horse. So we did exactly that. The winner of that 5-minute RFI actually is here. Dennis, if you can raise your hand. So one of the strange things we found out is that, like, we send it to some of the biggest consultancy companies, regular suppliers, alternative suppliers, some software, and we didn't pick the biggest one because they actually couldn't even respond. Couldn't figure out how to make a video in a week around this. So that's one of the lessons we learned. If you are going to do something really innovative, perhaps you shouldn't work with your regular supplier, because if they haven't given it to you in the last 20 years, why would they give it next year? So we then did a beta. A beta is a 4-week process that has a limited amount of money. And the objective is to get to a Dragon's Den where you actually show that you have something that outraces your fastest horse. In this case, we showed the blockchain solution, how it would work and how it would solve this problem, because that was one of the challenges. You can make 100,000 slides and go and say, like, we can solve this with blockchain, and I can solve the world problems with blockchain. No more wars on a slide, and no more this, and no more hunger. Nobody will believe me. That's why I don't do slides very well, because nobody would believe my slides. But take a demo and show people, and something magical happens. They don't listen to you, they convince themselves. When they see a solution in front of themselves that says, like, that shouldn't be possible, but yeah, actually it could work, they give you at least the benefit of the doubt. So what we then do is a 3-month pilot where we go and see, can we actually now launch it in production and see if it has any effect? For a blockchain solution last year, we did that 3-month pilot, and we invited some of the institutional clients to try it with fake data, but to try it, to see if they liked this process more. There was also a prospective customer that was shown this, and basically, we then got the feedback like, wow, this is good. We really like it. So then we got money to do an actual launch project, which I'm very happy that yesterday the press release went out, because it was like, can I talk publicly or not? But yes, we launched it. Amazon is helping us with the blockchain. DataArt is helping us with the technology. And we are actually able to do transactions that used to do weeks now in minutes, without throwing people at it. So the crazy thing about that is that that prospective customer now has signed up and has become the biggest customer for a Bermudan business, because it's not only solving the Bermuda side of it, but also on the customer. They don't need an army anymore of people putting literally many millions, if not billions, in spreadsheets and into hundreds and thousands of rows and sending that via email and having all type of conference calls on why is your calculation not the same as mine. It can be solved in minutes, and I'd like to have that performance report about performance, and because seconds is my real objective. So that's how we have gone through the whole process. Did it all go without any problem? No, it didn't. This is leading edge, bleeding edge technology. So sometimes you're unfortunately on the more bleeding edges, and then you have to try different things. Sometimes it has nothing to do with technology. So we started with one technology, picked another technology, because we compared them, and on paper, this other technology, which all financial services are looking into, looked like the better one. Until then, one of our partners came out with a solution that was based on the other solution that made it more than 10 times cheaper to do it that way. So we're like, let's go with the cheaper solution. And it was a whole Betamax versus VHS. The quality of this solution wasn't as good as the quality of the Betamax, but actually they both worked. And in a distributed technology where you want different customers to also be able to deploy nodes to be part of your network, what's cheapest, fastest, and works best is what you need. So we made these type of changes. So we basically are now launching with real customers. We're reconciling it, it's saving customers time. So what's next? We are now looking into how to scale this, how to do it at a bigger scale, how to do it for other things, because reconciling information for reinsurance policies is not the only place we're reconciling. There's many, many other places where we can be reconciling. We're also, like was mentioned before, looking at digital identity, because that's also an extremely interesting area for this technology. We're looking into, which wasn't mentioned, tokenization. So if you're doing something crazy interesting about tokenization, I'm interested. If you know legally how to do these things, have experience, I'm interested. And the way that you should sell whatever you have is not sending a slide deck and asking for an hour meeting, because I get on LinkedIn 20 people that ask me for an hour meeting every day. So I don't have time to actually say yes. You should actually do one of two things. That 1-minute video about this is the Harry Potter problem and here's a demo on how it gets solved. Guess what? You send that to somebody like me, and I can go all around the company and say, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And you don't have to ask for an hour meeting. We'll do a whole workshop with a whole team around it if your video is worth it. The other thing we love as well is GitHub. For those not familiar with GitHub code, give us some open source code to take a look at. Let us try it. We'll convince ourselves. So in the digital economy, it's no longer about who can take more tick boxes on a spreadsheet exercise called an RFP, but it's what's really working. What can we really do? What is a real impact in the economy? So I want to send everybody off with my learning. So focus on a Harry Potter problem. Hey, you can do magnificent demos about smart contracts on fridges and elevators. We even made a fountain that could generate money. But if you don't have a way to operationalize them, don't have a process to introduce those innovations and go and fail fast, so we fail enormous amounts of times in our alpha phase. A lot of Harry Potter problems, we go yeah, that's a good Harry Potter problem, find yourself another innovator. Or we're busy with some other things that change the world more. So innovation is not about being successful and managing the success. It's about optimizing the cost and the amounts of failure. And then move fast when you have market fit, when you have a solution, and be able to roll it out and be able to go and scale it beyond. So focus on those Harry Potter problems. Create these distributed business networks where you want those small startups to become, instead of disruptive innovators, what I call constructive innovators. You want them to help you jointly generate new revenues that make your customers happy. because that's really what will stop a wall in the US. And that wall will not be between Mexico and the US, but around Silicon Valley. If we keep on having models where like there's 5 companies in the world that create all the innovation and the rest are treated like just dumb customers, give up your data and so on, it's not going to look great. And what I'm really after is leaving this place in a better shape for my 3 children than how I found it. And I think we can use all these new technologies in 2 ways. One is make bots out of people. Another is really giving better solutions that create new potential and new jobs, because a lot of the automation will take away existing jobs, but we need to think, what's next? Can we make it here? Can we make it everywhere? Can we solve the challenges that like people with few money have? That's the type of things that we're looking into. That's the type of things where we want to use blockchain. That's the type of things that I think we can create a constructive economy where we all work together. Thank you.